Oregon OSHA's workplace safety and health rules only allow workers who have successfully completed appropriate training and evaluation to operate forklifts. This video covers how to operate a forklift safely, along with important procedures, so you can use yours safely and efficiently. It applies to experienced operators and first-timers alike. Keep in mind, this training will not cover every detail of forklift operation, but focuses instead on safety applications. There are many different forklift models made by a number of manufacturers. Be sure to also study the operating manual and become familiar with every kind of forklift you operate. A basic inspection of your forklift at the beginning of every shift is essential. Regular inspections can prevent breakdowns and surprises. Ideally, an inspection is written and includes some kind of checklist. Consider using an app to easily create records. A paper trail of maintenance procedures can help minimize liability if someone gets hurt. But if that's not feasible or in alignment with policies at your workplace, at least do a thorough visual inspection before each shift. Here are some things you might look for. Is there oil or liquid underneath the machine indicating a leak? Are hard tires in good shape, or are they cracked, worn, or damaged? Are pneumatic tires properly inflated? Are lug nuts in place and tight? Are lights functioning properly? Is the fuel tank secure with no signs of leaking? Do you have fuel in the machine? Are hydraulic hoses in good shape and not frayed or leaking? Always conduct this check visually. Never touch hydraulic hoses that may be under pressure. The hoses can have sharp, frayed wires. The oil can be hot, and in extreme cases, a pinhole leak in the hose can cause oil to shoot out under high pressure and inject under your skin, causing severe injury. Are the forks in good shape, not cracked, bent, or otherwise damaged? Are they set how you'll need them to be for the job you're about to perform? Are the chains in good condition, with no sign of missing pins or bolts? Is the operator's manual and weight capacity placard in place and readable? If there is a fire extinguisher on the forklift, is it ready to be used? Is the seat belt extending, retracting, and latching properly? Is it damaged? Once you get on the machine and fire it up, are the brakes holding and stopping as they should? Does the steering function as it should? How about the tilt and lift functions for the forks?
Stop and ask yourself, does everything feel right, sound right, and smell right? If not, stop and investigate or tell your supervisor. There's never a job so important that it's worth using a machine that isn't functioning properly and might be unsafe. Damaged or malfunctioning equipment should be tagged out according to your employer's lockout-tagout procedures.
Always turn off the motor before fueling, and do not restart it until the fuel tank cap has been replaced. Check to make sure you're using the right kind of fuel for your forklift. Wear eye or face protection and insulated gloves anytime you handle propane to prevent being injured by a leak. Electric forklifts are increasingly common, and they're advantageous because there's no fuel to handle, and they don't create hazardous exhaust gases. Charging stations need to be protected from damage by a strong barrier or by placing them away from the path of travel. If a fork can do this to a structural steel beam, think of what it can do to a high-voltage charging block. Every forklift has a designated weight capacity displayed on a placard that is visible from the operator's platform. Exceeding that weight capacity can be extremely dangerous. If you're unsure of the weight of the load that you're about to carry, test the stability of your machine by lifting the cargo slightly off the ground and moving your forklift a short distance and then applying the brakes. If the back end of the forklift starts to come off the ground, or your steering is less responsive than normal, your cargo is likely too heavy and should not be moved. Keep your cargo as low to the ground as possible, centered on the forks, and as close to the mast as possible. By doing so, you can avoid tipping forward. You may find it easier to get underneath the cargo with your forks tilted down a little. Once the load is on the forks, tilt the mast back when possible to keep the load from sliding off. Drive in that tilted back position until you get to the area where you plan to unload. Most of us have experience driving cars or trucks, but forklifts steer, handle, and feel very different. Rear-wheel steering allows the machine to maneuver through compact areas, but can cause the rear end to swing side to side, potentially striking walls, beams, vehicles, or people. Driving with rear-wheel steering can take getting used to. Smooth steering is key. When traveling, keep the forks as low to the ground as possible. That height might vary with your terrain. When driving on flat, smooth concrete, they might be 2 inches off the ground. And when driving up a bumpy hill, they might need to be 10 inches off the ground. But keeping the forks as low as possible will help keep the machine stable. When traveling down a slope with cargo, turn your machine around so that your cargo is uphill. This likely means driving in reverse. While driving in reverse, turn yourself around in your seat and face the direction of travel. If traveling up an especially steep hill, consider driving backwards to prevent your forks from potentially sticking into the road ahead of you. Avoid driving diagonally on a slope across a grade. Turn and stop smoothly. Sudden stops can cause your cargo to shift. Be aware of your cargo. Cargo that is unstable and shifts or falls while you are pulling or carrying it can affect the balance of your forklift or potentially strike and injure others around you.
Sometimes your cargo can obscure your vision of your path of travel. This is dangerous. The temptation might be to hang your head out the side of your forklift to see around your cargo, but this is not the right solution. You can still only see half of your path of travel, and you're outside of the cage protecting you from falling objects or obstacles. And odds are, if you're hanging out the side of your forklift, you're probably not wearing your seatbelt. So what can you do instead? Frequently the answer is to drive in reverse, but as mentioned, this doesn't mean to just glance over your shoulder and go. You need to turn around in your seat and face the direction of travel the entire time you're driving in reverse. Sometimes driving in reverse isn't an option. Maybe you're loading a truck or container, or maybe you need to set your cargo at the end of a long, narrow hallway. If you don't have the option to drive in reverse, think about using a spotter, getting off the forklift and scouting the area you're about to drive through, or just move less cargo at a time and take multiple trips. What you don't want to do is to simply say, well, I can't see, but here I come.
When parking, make sure you lower your forks flat on the ground. Even if the forks are lowered most of the way, they can still present a major tripping hazard. Put the forklift in neutral and set the parking brake. Block the wheels if it's on an incline. Be mindful of your surroundings and park your forklift in an area that is not blocking any fire extinguishers, emergency eye wash stations, first aid kits, fire exits or stairwells, breaker box panels, or any other areas that someone might need to get to in a hurry. If you're just stepping away from your forklift momentarily while the engine is running, make sure to stay within 25 feet of the forklift and keep an eye on it at all times. If you can't stay close and see it, then you need to park and shut down your forklift. Be careful while climbing on and off your forklift, and always maintain 3 points of contact. Remember, 3 is key. Slips, trips, and falls are one of the most common workplace injuries. Avoid climbing on and off the side of the forklift where your fork controls are located. It puts you at extra risk of bumping a lever and inadvertently moving your forks or cargo, potentially causing an injury. You must be at least 18 years old to operate a forklift. Drive at safe speeds. This includes adjusting your speed for your conditions. decreased traction, uneven surfaces, larger or less stable loads, impaired visibility due to poor lighting, operating in tight quarters, and pedestrians might require us to slow down. Whenever possible, try to keep at least 3 truck lengths distance between you and other forklifts. When approaching blind spots and intersections, warn others by sounding your horn. It's especially critical when driving into and out of buildings or containers, where people might not be able to see you coming. Avoid unnecessary use of the horn to prevent overexposure and loss of awareness by those who work in forklift environments. Never pass other vehicles going in the same direction. If you want to race these machines, join an authorized forklift racing league. Always watch for overhead hazards such as power lines, especially while lifting the forks or cargo higher into the air. Experienced operators should take care to avoid complacency and continue to receive regular training. You will undoubtedly get faster and more efficient with experience, but your safety behaviors on a forklift should be the same whether it's your first day or your 20th year. Keep in mind that gas, diesel, and propane-powered forklifts generate carbon monoxide and other hazardous fumes. Operating them in enclosed areas with insufficient ventilation can create dangerous conditions for employees. If you plan to use your forklift to elevate another person, ensure the basket is properly guarded, secured to the mast, and in compliance with Oregon OSHA regulations. A significant number of forklift injuries happen not to the operator, but to pedestrians on the ground. As the forklift operator, it is your single biggest responsibility to maintain 360-degree situational awareness of your surroundings, including any pedestrians. With that said, if you are a pedestrian working around forklifts, it is in your best interest to make that job easier for the forklift driver. That means staying a wide distance away from active forklifts, avoiding distractions like phones while walking through areas where forklifts are present, and not walking up to equipment until the operator is aware of your presence. Pedestrian safety is a 2-person job. Forklifts are extremely heavy, and their tires, especially hard rubber tires, are extremely unforgiving if a mistake is made and a foot is run over. As a pedestrian, you should never trust hydraulics. Forklift hydraulic systems can catastrophically fail and crash to the ground in a moment's notice, releasing the stored kinetic energy of forks and cargo in the air. Even in cases when hydraulics don't fail, operators can unintentionally touch levers and lower forks unexpectedly, crushing anything below. Pedestrians should never be allowed to walk or reach underneath elevated forklift forks. A forklift only has one seat and one seatbelt, and therefore should only carry one person. Never allow others to ride on running boards, steps, fuel tanks, or forks. Pedestrian safety vests are a great way to improve visibility, but may not be appropriate in every situation. Safety vests should be well fitted and closed, not hanging open. When working around equipment that may pose an entanglement hazard, the risk of wearing a vest may exceed any benefit of increased visibility. In these circumstances, instead consider high visibility clothing or straps, safety lanes, and physical barriers.
Pretty universally, when we talk to people that have run over and killed a coworker, friend, or family member, they tell us they would gladly trade places with them if they could. That's a difficult burden to carry for the rest of our lives. Ensuring the safety of others while we're operating equipment in the workplace should always be our number one priority.
If a trailer is attached to a truck, ensure that the truck brakes are set. Always check to ensure that chocks are in place behind the rear wheels, or, if present, ensure dock locks are in place and secured. These will prevent the trailer from potentially rolling away from the dock. If it's not attached to a truck, ensure the front of the trailer is supported with landing gear or a nose jack, and that the equipment used to support the trailer is in good shape and sufficient for the task at hand. Never improvise supports for the front end of the trailer with pallets, beams, or other objects. Check for damage in the flooring of the trailer. Also, check to make sure the dock plate is secure if appropriate. In some cases, lifting and moving cargo doesn't happen on concrete floors or gravel driveways. This is where rough terrain or off-road forklifts come into play. All the same principles of a traditional forklift still apply. Maintenance and inspections before use, staying within your weight limits, and being aware of your center of gravity, watching out for pedestrians, adjusting your speed to match the terrain, and everything else we just discussed. But a rough terrain forklift has oversized tires and higher ground clearance, which means they're often taller, wider, have higher weight capacities, and can be used in areas that standard forklifts could never operate. They present some unique safety considerations. That extra width of a rough terrain forklift means it takes up more space, and you have to be more cautious when operating in tight areas. The extra height can potentially raise your center of gravity and put you at a greater risk of touching overhead hazards. That increased weight capacity can make you overconfident in the lifting capabilities of your machine. They are frequently less maneuverable and may have decreased visibility. Working in fields or undeveloped areas might lead you to encounter bumps, potholes, ruts, and slippery or unsecure driving surfaces. You may encounter steeper terrain, drop-offs, and ditches. Take extra time and caution while operating these larger machines. If you follow all the appropriate safety precautions, you should be able to avoid ever tipping over a forklift. However, mistakes are made and accidents happen. You should have a plan so you know exactly how you're going to respond if a forklift tips over. Wearing your seatbelt every time you operate a forklift, whether you're driving it for 10 seconds or 10 hours, is one of the most important things you can do to keep yourself safe.
Do you know anyone who has successfully jumped off of a tipping forklift without injury? I do. It can be done. Sometimes those people even say, if I hadn't jumped off when I did, I might have been hurt or killed. And if I'd been wearing my seatbelt, I wouldn't have been able to. But it's important to draw a distinction between anecdotal and empirical evidence, a couple of people's stories versus statistics and data. While I know a couple people that have successfully jumped off of a tipping over machine and walked away from it, I know of a lot more who tried and failed. The statistics very clearly tell us that if our machine is going to tip over, the safest place for us is inside the roll cage with the seatbelt on. If you feel like your forklift is going to tip over, never jump from the vehicle. Instead, grab onto the steering wheel and brace yourself. Your instinct may be to grab onto the wheel and lock your arms out, pushing yourself backwards in your seat. While this might make sense if our concern was a frontal collision, really it isn't ideal in a tip over. Look how much room there is for lateral movement. If this machine were to tip over, where's your head going? Into the bar or into the pavement? Instead, wrap your arms under the steering wheel, using your forearms and your biceps to pull yourself in tight against it. Look how much more stable this is. I couldn't push him out if I wanted to. This is the most secure position to be in if our forklift were to tip over, and it gives you the best odds of walking away from the incident without a serious injury. Plus, you get to show some love to the machine that does all that hard work for you and your crew.
Today we've talked about some basic principles of forklift safety. Pre-use inspection and maintenance. Fuel. Loading and moving heavy cargo. Parking. Remaining aware of your surroundings. Watching out for pedestrians. Loading trucks and trailers. Using forklifts on rough terrain. And what to do if a forklift tips over. But this video alone is not enough to complete your training. After watching this training, make sure you review with your team the specific equipment you'll be using. the jobs you'll be performing, the environments you'll be working in, and any unique hazards present in your workplace. Conduct testing with your employees to ensure the concepts presented here are understood, and then make sure each forklift operator completes a drive test so these concepts can be applied in real life. Make sure you keep a record that includes the operator's name, the training and evaluation dates, and the name of the person conducting the training and evaluation. Retrain employees regularly whenever you observe unsafe behavior or at the intervals required for your industry. While forklifts are powerful tools that can make some of the most difficult jobs easier and more efficient, they are also capable of causing terrible damage and harm. Follow the steps we've outlined in this training and visit our other resources on safe.com to ensure you, the operator, along with everyone around you, go home safely.